Parallel dimensions versus planes of existence in RPGs. One of the things I get asked about a lot is the cosmology of different RPG settings. The planes of existence from Dungeons & Dragons in particular. I've only myself to blame since I researched so many sources of information and made so many videos and live streams talking about the subject. So I'm just going to skip the newbie explanations about what planes are in D&D. If you're reading this, you should already know the basics. So what is a parallel dimension? In D&D terms, it's an alternate prime material plane that exists in the same location but separated by some sort of thing, be it a vibrational frequency, mirrors and reflections, psychic stuff, magic. It's perhaps very much like the world the player characters live in, but there are some differences. The cartoon Rick and Morty is all about parallel dimensions. The whole show explains them very well, and the existential issues make the show wonderfully dark and dystopian, particularly when Rick is ranting about how there are infinite duplicates of the universe, so nothing really matters. You can ruin whole realities and just shift to a new one, similar enough to your own original dimension to forget that these people are not the same ones you left behind, your parents are not your parents, etc. In writing my next adventure for Derailed Fantasy, the subject of parallel dimensions is central to the crystal curse within the Ebonhold Castle. The players encounter one thing after another that seem completely weird, yet they have a strange theme going on involving rabbits for some reason. Why rabbits? I thought tentacles and Cthulhu horror was a little dull. I wanted something unexpected and ridiculous. So, rabbits. The story of Ebonhold goes like this. A wizard knight of great fame, during the construction of his castle on a rock outcrop next to a river, uncovered some ancient caverns with a strange, extremely powerful crystal inside. He built his castle, the Ebonhold, over the caverns, expanding them to form a bit of a dungeon, and tried to use the crystal to make a very potent magical sword, which he did. He broke off a shard of the crystal and placed it in the sword to make a very lethal Vorpal blade. However, the broken crystal also fractured reality and created an unstable gateway to 3 parallel dimensions. One dimension for each +1 of the Vorpal sword, in fact. This borrows a concept from very early D&D, where magic weapons and armor get their special qualities because they contain materials from different planes of existence. I love this idea and use it often, and why not? It makes perfect fantasy logic sense. Something from another reality is going to work to slightly different laws of physics. Therefore, it has the innate ability to break the rules a bit when taken to another reality. That is the essence of magic itself, yet appeals to our desire to understand the why of the thing. Why does the sword slice right through armor? Because part of that sword blade is not completely real, or perhaps it's so very real, everything else is almost reduced to 2 dimensions, paper thin. Another aspect of parallel dimensions is that, unlike planes of existence, there may exist an alternate version of the same things and the same people. In Star Trek, they play with the idea of parallel dimensions where the human race is an evil empire, eliminating other beings in their conquest of the galaxy. A complete opposite of the desired peaceful coexistence of all things in the United Federation of Planets back in our own dimension. It is such a close duplicate that there are evil versions of the same people, and you can certainly do that in fantasy role-playing games very easily, as the player characters have detailed information written down on their player character sheets. The fun there is representing a situation where the characters interact with each other, and the differences between them become a game's main focus. This is where my happy place lives. So, putting the concept into action, 3 alternate realities are connected and mirror each other within the Ebonhold Castle dungeons. By the time they get down there, the players will have encountered some of the residents of those alternate realities who have already crossed over, and a vital part of the adventure, the objective, is to end that crossing over of things and restore reality back to normal by repairing the powerful dimensional crystal within the dungeon. This is not so easy, as it involves not only sacrificing a very powerful magical Vorpal sword, but also convincing the alternate versions of the player characters to carry out the exact same plan on their side of the crystal portals, within their own reality. as once the crystal is restored, it closes off the portal forever. Thankfully, there is an escape clause in the form of the gate spell found on a magical scroll within the Ebonhold, and it stands to reason there is another version of it in the other realities, but to get it, a very nasty monster has to be either avoided or defeated. It's optional, probably best avoided, but if negotiations with the alternate duplicates go drastically wrong, it allows them to still complete the mission at a bit more risk of life and limb. The alternate dimensions all revolve around the theme of rabbits. In the first, probably the least weird dimension, all the animals seem to be evolved from rabbits, including the humanoid races, which is shocking, but not nearly as shocking as for the rabbit folk versions of the player characters, who are confronted with a world so similar to their own, but all of the animals, birds, insects, fish, and people are completely different species, which they've never seen before. They don't have apes, they have ape-like rabbits, they have rabbit birds and so on, so everything looks weirdly mutated and monstrous to them. The people look very spooky with their lack of fur and ape-like appearance, but they are generally a noble and peaceful bunch who can overcome their shock and horror if given a chance. The second dimension is quite strange and the most dangerous. Everyone evolved from ticks, fleas, and other parasites because the entire planet is a stupendously massive, world-sized rabbit. What is worse is that they are used to just feeding on the world directly. They all subsist on the blood and tissue of the world rabbit, and so they need to feed fairly constantly, having never experienced a situation where food was not constantly available to them. The blood and tissue they need is now contained in the animals and people they find as very strange versions of themselves, and to cap it all off, not only are they forced to be predatory vampires in the player character's dimension, but their feeding carries a form of lycanthropy, so any creature they feed on will turn into a monstrous insect hybrid under the light of a full moon. Finally, the third dimension is a world where all the plants are animals and all the animals are plants. So trees have bone, sinew, muscles, veins and organs, hair, skin, teeth and so on, where the alternate versions of the player characters are humanoid plants. The more I pondered the situation, the more fun and creepy it became. But one thing really made me giggle. You see, in Dungeons & Dragons, there are these plant humanoid fae beings called dryads, which are supernaturally beautiful spirits of oak trees, and I thought, what if the plant people find the normal meat people to be unbelievably beautiful, and yet at the same time, everything is just so amazingly disgusting? I can't resist playing with ideas like that because they're just so funny. So, I have set the stage for the adventure. Now I just have to narrate it, create artwork to represent it, and create an engaging video for everyone to enjoy and be inspired by. As I write every chapter and the story unfolds, I'm constantly asking myself, is this as fun as it can be? How can I elevate the adventure and wonder here? There is plenty of time for dull moments in a gaming evening with your friends, but I don't want to write any of those moments into the adventure itself. I want to write a real banger, something that players are never going to forget. Perhaps even some alternative reality so compelling that the players will beg their dungeon master to let the characters return to them in another adventure. I leave these things, as always, in your capable hands. My name is AJ Pickett, and I'm writing an adventure called The Crystal Curse of Ebonhold for Derailed Fantasy on my channel, and if you have any questions about alternate realities and parallel dimensions and different planes of existence, as always, feel free to ask them down in the comment section below. I'm sure either I or other members of the audience will be able to answer them for you. As always, thanks for joining me, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.